Hey there, Trailblazers! Welcome back to the channel where we dive into the stars and smash some toughness bars. Today, we're heating things up, literally, by talking about all the fire characters in Honkai Star Rail. You know the drill. Every character in this game comes with a path and a combat type, and while the path defines how they play, that combat type? Oh, it's the key to cracking those pesky enemy weaknesses. And fire? Oh, fire's been spicy ever since launch, even though it started out a little lukewarm. But then, boom, version 2.3 rolled in and changed the game. Enter Firefly, the fire type we didn't know we needed. This absolute unit brought fire characters out of the shadows and into the spotlight, making the type one of the most exciting in the game right now. So today, we're talking all things fiery, who's hot, who's not, and why Firefly is setting the battlefield ablaze. Stick around, because this is gonna be lit. I'm quickly moving on to the video. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching. Let's talk about Nihility characters in Honkai Star Rail. If you're a fan of debuffs and making enemies cry, then you've probably dipped into this path. These characters specialize in weakening foes, messing up their stats, and sometimes outright ruining their day. But hey, not all Nihility characters are created equal, so let's take a closer look at what makes some shine and others, well, sit on the bench. Take someone like Kafka, for example. This electrifying queen has become a fan favorite, not just because of her stylish moves, but her ability to trigger DOT effects like nobody's business. Pair her up with another DOT dealer, and you're basically running a slow-cooking death squad. On the flip side, we have characters like Pella who excels in defense reduction but might leave you wondering if her kit brings enough punch compared to the big hitters. She's solid, don't get me wrong, but it's a niche playstyle that might not be for everyone. And then there's the wild card, Silver Wolf. Ah, the joy of hacking your enemy's resistances to pieces. She's a Nihility character who brings utility in spades, and honestly, she feels like cheating sometimes. That said, Nihility as a whole isn't just about stats, it's about synergy. The more you can stack debuffs and coordinate your team, the more satisfying it gets. So, are you Team Nihility, or do you prefer hitting things really hard? Let me know in the comments. Oh, Hook, the explosive little bundle of chaos we all loved at launch. She came in hot, literally, as the go-to fire DPS in Honkai Star Rail. Her ability to spread burn like wildfire and then use it to supercharge her damage made her a must-have for any team looking to melt through enemies. Pair her with some solid supports and boom! She was clearing content left and right like a little fire queen. But here's the thing about Hook. While she's fun and packs a punch, she's still a 4-star character. And as much as we love her fiery antics, she's starting to feel a little outpaced. Fast forward to version 2.3 and things got spicy, but not in Hook's favor. Along came a brand new fire destruction unit, and this one's a 5-star powerhouse. You can probably guess what happened next. Hook's throne as the top fire DPS got a bit wobbly, and before we knew it, she was pushed to the side. It's not her fault. Power creep is a thing after all, but let's just say she's not the first pick for a lot of players anymore. That doesn't mean she's bad though. Hook is still super fun and can be a solid option for early to mid-game players or anyone who just loves her explosive personality. So where does that leave Hook? Honestly, she's still got her charm. She's great for players who are just starting out or those who need a reliable fire DPS without a 5-star budget. But if you're looking to stay competitive in the current meta, she might not be your go-to anymore. That said, let's not forget what made Hook shine in the first place. She's a 4-star dynamo with a big personality and a bigger explosion. Whether you're a fan or just passing through, there's no denying that Hook left a fiery mark on Honkai Star Rail. Alright, let's talk about Honkai Star Rail and dive into the Nihility characters, those cheeky debuff masters who make your enemies regret existing. One standout in this group is Ginaifen, the bubbly streamer from Shenzhou Luofu. She's all about spreading good vibes and bad burns. Literally. Her kit revolves around dealing fire AoE damage and applying burn. But here's the spicy part. When that burn triggers, she adds a little something called Fire Kiss. Sounds cute, right? Well, it's not so cute for her enemies because it makes your entire team hit harder, boosting their damage by up to 28%. Now, before you start building your ultimate Ginaifen team, let's manage expectations. That 28% boost is nice, but compared to other supports out there, it's a bit underwhelming. She's not going to replace heavy hitters like Tingyun or Bronya anytime soon. But, and this is a big but, if you're running a DOT, a damage over time team with someone like Kafka or Black Swan, she can actually shine. It's like she was made to be their hype girl, setting the stage for their electrifying performances. So, is Gwyneth worth your time? If you're all about that DOT life, absolutely. She's got the personality, the fire, literally, and the synergy to make those setups pop. But if you're looking for a universal support who can fit into any team, she might not be your first pick. Still, who doesn't love a cheerful streamer bringing the heat, both in battle and in spirit? Drop a comment below with your favorite Nihility characters, and let's see how Gwyneth stacks up in your roster. Let's talk about Asta, one of the most interesting characters in Honkai Star Rail, and honestly, a bit of a wild card when it comes to team building. She's part of the Harmony path, which is widely regarded as one of the best in the game for support characters. But here's the thing, Asta doesn't quite hit the top of the meta charts. Why? Well, her kit's a little scattered. She's designed to be a buffer, but she also applies burn to enemies with her attacks. While that sounds great on paper, the burn doesn't exactly blow anyone away because it scales with her ATK, which isn't her strongest suit. So, is she good or just okay? Let's dive in. Despite her kit being all over the place, Asta does shine in certain team comps. For starters, she buffs both SPD and ATK for the entire party, which is a massive win if you're running a DOT, damage over time setup. Imagine pairing her with characters who thrive on continuous damage. She just makes everything smoother and faster. And let's not forget her ability to buff Fire DMG. That opens up opportunities to slot her into fire-focused teams, like one featuring Firefly, if you're still working on unlocking higher tier supports. It's like she's the puzzle piece that doesn't fit perfectly, but still makes the picture look good. All in all, Asta might not be the MVP of every squad, but she's far from useless. She's one of those characters you pick because you need her specific buffs to make your team click, not because she's carrying the whole squad on her back. If you're into creating niche comps or love the challenge of maximizing underdog characters, she's a ton of fun to play around with. Just don't expect her burn effect to set the world on fire, pun totally intended. So, is she worth building? Absolutely, but only if you've got the right pieces to back her up. Oh, the Nihility path in Honkai Star Rail, a playground for debuff masters and tactical geniuses. These characters may not boast raw damage like the Destruction or the Hunt, but they shine by weakening enemies and turning the tide of battle in clever ways. If you're someone who loves watching enemies crumble under the weight of status effects, then this is your vibe. Let's talk about why these characters bring more brains than brawn to your team. First up, what makes Nihility characters special is their ability to control the battlefield. Take Kafka for example. She's the queen of DOT, damage over time effects, spreading shock like it's nobody's business. Pair her with a team that can exploit those debuffs, and you'll see your enemies ticking down faster than your stamina during a boss fight. And don't forget about Silver Wolf. She's a hacker who can literally force enemies to take more damage by implanting elemental weaknesses. Talk about making your opponents play by your rules. But here's the catch. Nihility isn't for players who just want to brute force their way through battles. It's about strategy, synergy, and patience. You'll need the right characters and combos to fully unleash their potential. When it works though, it's like a symphony of destruction. And you're the maestro. So, if you're ready to outsmart your foes instead of just out-hitting them, Nihility characters might just become your favorite path in the game. Alright, let's talk about one of the more underrated characters in Honkai, Star Rail, Fire Trailblazer. Now, when you first start out in the game, choices for good shields are pretty limited. That's where Fire Trailblazer comes in clutch. You get them for free just by progressing through the story, and they immediately offer value by giving your whole party a shield every time they take action. It's not the strongest shield ever, but it's reliable, and consistency is key, right? Now, what really sets Fire Trailblazer apart is their ability to taunt enemies. Yep, their skill lets them force all those enemy attacks onto themselves, which is perfect when you're up against enemies with single target attacks. Instead of worrying about your fragile units getting hit, Fire Trailblazer steps up and takes the blows for them. It's like having a bodyguard in battle, but one that's super easy to get early on. If you're in the early game or just looking for some solid tanking support, Fire Trailblazer is definitely worth considering. They're simple, effective, and honestly, kind of fun to use. Plus, they're just a great example of how sometimes the most straightforward characters can be the ones that really help you get through tough fights. If you're diving into Honkai Star Rail and you're eyeing some of the all-Nihility characters, let's take a closer look at Gallagher, a standout unit from the 4th region of the Stellar Universe. At first glance, you might think he's just another healer, but trust me, he's got way more tricks up his sleeve than that. With his skill, Gallagher can heal a single ally, which is already nice. But the real kicker comes when enemies are inflicted with the Besotted effect. That's when the healing really kicks in, as he provides party-wide healing every time one of those enemies gets attacked. It's a pretty sweet bonus that can keep your team going when the going gets tough. But if you really want to take Gallagher's potential to the next level, pair him up with Harmony Trailblazer and let the fun begin. This combo is chef's kiss for breaking enemy toughness. Gallagher excels at tearing down toughness bars with ease, and when you add Harmony Trailblazer's capabilities into the mix, you're looking at some serious super break DMG. The synergy between these two is like a well-oiled machine. Break the enemy's defense and follow up with devastating damage. It's honestly a game changer. Now I know what you're thinking. Okay, healing's great, but why should I care about toughness? Well, think of it like this. Breaking toughness makes enemies more vulnerable, and that's where Gallagher's real value shines. If you're running a team that thrives on breaking toughness, Gallagher should definitely be on your radar. He's not just a healer, he's a key player in a strategy that's all about putting the hurt on your enemies and making sure they stay down for the count. Definitely a must-have for any team that's looking to dominate the battlefield. Alright, so today we're diving into the world of Nihility characters in Honkai Star Rail. Now, when Nihility was first introduced, it was all about characters who could debuff the enemy, making them weaker and creating the perfect setup for your DPS to just go wild. But after Silverwolf came in and totally shook up the meta, it became more about DOTs and dealing massive damage. It kinda left the whole debuffing vibe in the dust, but hey, don't worry. The devs have finally given us a true debuffer again, and his name is Jiaoqiu. Jiaoqiu is like a breath of fresh air for Nihility fans. He doesn't care about DOTs or just nuking enemies with raw damage. No, his job is to set up the battlefield for your main DPS. How does he do that? Well, he places a special field that debuffs enemies every time they take a turn. This makes him the perfect partner for Acheron's ultimate stacks, boosting your damage output to insane levels. It's like he's your team's unsung hero, silently making your DPS even more terrifying. Seriously, if you're running Acheron, Jiaoqiu should be in your squad. But here's the catch. If you're not rolling with Acheron, Jiaoqiu might not feel as essential. In that case, you're probably better off with other Harmony characters that give you a solid damage boost. So, while he's an absolute powerhouse when paired right, outside of that, he can feel a little less impactful. Still, if you're into the whole let's make my DPS shine brighter strategy, Jiaoqiu is definitely worth considering. It's all about the synergy, baby! Alright, let's talk about the powerhouses of the all-Nihility faction in Honkai: Star Rail, Fugue, Nihility, and Firefly. These characters have been absolutely dominating the meta since their release, and the best part? They just keep getting better. Fugue in particular has a special place in players' hearts. She's not just your average break-based support, she brings something fresh to the table, a unique mechanic that directly impacts the toughness of enemies. And let's be real, any mechanic that messes with toughness is a game changer. What makes Fugue even more incredible is that she introduces an additional toughness bar, which is 40% of the enemy's total toughness. That means you start breaking it down right after the initial toughness bar is cleared, and once you've fully stripped it away, get ready to unleash full break damage with that attack. On top of that, she's got your back in ways that few others can, allowing your allies to dish out super break damage while boosting the break effect for one lucky teammate. So, whether you're looking to destroy toughness or help your team hit harder, Fugue's got it covered. But let's not forget the other stars of the show, Nihility and Firefly. Together, they make for a stellar combo that's all about dismantling enemies while keeping your team buffed and ready for action. So, if you're aiming to build a team that can decimate enemy toughness and support each other in the process, the all-Nihility characters are definitely the way to go. Trust me, once you get a taste of this trio's power, you'll never look at break damage the same way again. When a new sustainer drops in Honkai Star Rail, it feels like you've already found your perfect team. You tell yourself, I don't need any more sustainers, 2 is more than enough. But then, Hoyoverse swoops in and adds someone like Lingsha, and suddenly, you're pulling all over again. She's just that irresistible. Whether it's her ability to dish out massive damage with break effect in a break-based team, or her crit boost in a more general setup, she doesn't just fill a role, she dominates it. But it's not just about the damage, folks. What makes Lingsha stand out even more is her consistent healing. She doesn't leave her team hanging. With her skill, follow-up attack, and ultimate, she ensures that everyone stays topped off during those intense battles. And honestly, seeing her perform those beautifully animated follow-up attacks and ultimate moves is just the cherry on top. It's like watching a well-choreographed dance where you know your team is safe and sound, all while dishing out some serious punishment. Lingsha really brings something special to the table in Honkai Star Rail, especially for those all-nihility teams. So, if you've been on the fence about pulling for her, trust me, you might want to give in. Her mix of damage, sustain, and just pure beauty in her animations makes her a must-have. You'll definitely find yourself thinking, how did I ever live without her? If you're looking to dive into the world of all-nihility characters in Honkai Star Rail, let's start with the one that really stands out, Firefly. She's one of the latest additions to the Stellaron Hunter squad, and to no one's surprise, she absolutely dominates when it comes to fire-based damage. At first glance, you might think, where's the big damage? But Firefly's power doesn't come right off the bat. She's all about playing the long game. Her secret weapon is Break DMG, which, if you can build it up, leads to some seriously devastating attacks. The fun part with Firefly comes when you start getting into the Super Break DMG. When you use her enhanced attacks on a weakness-broken unit, that's where the magic happens. Her ability to stack that Super Break with characters like Harmony Trailblazer makes her not just a solo powerhouse, but also a team player. And if you throw in someone like Gallagher, the damage output goes through the roof. The synergy between these characters is like a perfect storm, making Firefly an absolute must-have if you're looking to deal massive damage in the later parts of the game. Now, you may be thinking, is she worth it for my team? And I'd say, absolutely. While she may take a little bit of setup to get her full potential going, once Firefly is in her element, she'll leave enemies in the dust. It's all about that timing and breaking down the enemy's defenses, and with the right companions by her side, she turns into an unstoppable force. So, if you're planning your team for that big fight ahead, don't sleep on Firefly. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.